Thank you for coming back on time. And now we're starting our last panel discussion on the aspect of artificial intelligence and hate speech. And I very warmly welcome our panelists and also, of course, our moderator, who is Kelemen Bence, senior lecturer at the University of Pécs at the Faculty of Law. And also we have here at the table Zsolt Ződi, Senior Research Fellow at the National University of Public Service, and Gergely Lendvai, Research Fellow at the Information Society Law Center from the University of Milan, PhD candidate also at the Pázmány Péter Catholic University in Hungary. And we are also joined online by Laurine Chabal, Advocacy Officer at Gergely, and also another online panelist we have with us today is Sara Sighinolfi. I'm sorry for my pronunciation. She's Program Officer at the EU's Fundamental Rights Agency. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Good afternoon. So, initially, I planned to go with an introductory round first, but since we have this behind us, so we can jump into the merits of our panel discussion. First of all, I'd like to mention that we are going to have three segments of today's panel. The first will be dealing with AI tools for combating and detecting hate speech. The second one will deal with advocacy issues connected to this specific topic, and then at the end we are going to open the floor to questions from the audience as well. So let's jump into our first panel and the first segment of this panel. So my first question would be a combined question actually, and this would go like this. How online hate and its moderation manifest itself, and how AI tools can be used to actually combat this situation and this issue. First of all, I would like to ask Sara to jump in on this question.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Sara. I come from the EU Agency for Fundamental Rights based in Vienna. It's a pity not to be with you in person today, but firstly, let me thank the organizer for inviting the FRA to this very relevant topic. I mean, I'm sure most of you know the FRA, so I will not spend on time on that. You might know us from our large-scale, the EU-wide surveys on equality. Here we are not speaking about hate speech, I mean, hate that is happening in the street, let's say, but that is happening online, that is happening through the digital platforms that most of us are familiar with and that we are ourselves users of most of the time, unless few of you are not, which this is rare nowadays. So how online hate manifests itself? Well, at the FRA, we have conducted a research that was published in November 2023, exactly to understand the manifestation of online hate. It was also a way for us to understand how this is assessed and detected in the digital world, and particularly on the social platform. Before I get in some results of this research, I would like to explain a little bit the methodology, because of course the results, the numbers that I will give, they're not representative of online aid widely that appears all over in all the platform, but are very limited to what we have researched. And this also could be seen as a challenge. So how we detect, how we make sure that actually offensive content is seen when it concerns all groups across society, and particularly groups which are protected under the Charter of Fundamental Rights. So at the FRA, we have research for social media platforms, YouTube. So we have looked at the comments that are made on YouTube. Reddit, some of you might know, is a platform that allows for certain types of group to meet, to discuss, etc. Telegram, here we had looked at open chat, so we didn't go into the profile of people, but what was made public on Telegram. And finally, X, the former Twitter. We looked at 4 under-researched languages, so content that was expressed in Bulgaria, Italian, Swedish, and German. Especially, we didn't look into English because, of course, this is the language of the platform. So as we will see, AI might work better on certain languages with respect to others. In these 4 languages, we looked at 400 random posts and a comment from each of the country to determine whether they were hateful. Hateful against whom? For this research, we picked a certain group, and mainly women, people of African descent, and people of African origin, Jewish people, and Roma. So what did we look at? Actually, at first it was not easy to understand what are we going to search in the platform. And we defined, or I mean, it's not a definition, but we decided to look at keywords that were pointing to incitement to violence, denigration, meaning when people are compared, are objectified basically, or they're compared to animals, offensive language, negative stereotyping, and either hateful content. So what did we find? Well, we know ourselves when we open social media, it's very evident that there is a lot of widespread online hate. Out of the posts that we had analyzed, more than half were found as, they were considered hateful by the human coders that we had engaged with. Hateful meant they had threatening type of content, they were abusive, insulting, they were likely to offend, to humiliate the groups I have mentioned before. Mostly, there were appalling level of misogyny on the platform that we have seen, and across the languages except German, I believe. 2/3 of the posts that we had analyzed could amount to some form of harassment against women. They were sexist. They were inciting to violence. We also saw that there was a lot of negative stereotyping against the people of African descent, Roma, and Jews. Overall, we saw that all these posts that were already gone through a forced online content moderation tool analysis by the platform, they contain some form of offensive, hateful content. Harassment was found in almost 50% of all hateful posts that our researcher analyzed. And also denigration was very high. Therefore, how? I mean, as I said, this is not an easy exercise. The posts that we had looked at had already gone through some detection of online hate, and still they were on the platforms. Why so? Well, in our research, we found that it was very difficult for a coder to define what was an hateful content. As we know, there is not a commonly agreed definition of online hate that is cross-cutting for all groups and protected grounds. There are definitions, there are also legal definitions, but sometimes what we found it was also that human coders did not agree whether a certain content was offensive or not. It depends also on our background. Just to be a little bit teaser, if I say all women are bound to the kitchen, is this hateful? Is this offensive? Well, it depends, of course, on the context. It depends on who is saying it, in which situation. But to me, personally, as a woman, would be offensive, mainly because I don't even know how to cook. But these are the forms of things that we have seen and came across. Now I'm saying just an expression or some sort of text that is very easy to say. But if you look at our reports, we mask basically the text because it is highly hateful towards the groups that we have analyzed. Okay, as you know, and then I try to conclude, this is a vast topic. There is a lot of content on the social platforms. So how can Facebook, YouTube, X find out what is hateful out there, the women in the kitchen, yeah? So they use automated tools, and meaning algorithms to support the search. And sometimes these automated tools, they delete themselves the content on the basis of the program, the algorithm that has been established. Facebook, for example, also has publicly available information on the content that has been deleted. And this is more increasingly used by the platform. But again, what Fra has found and discussed in multiple ways and times is that algorithm should be really neutral and fair in respect to the text that they decide to delete. Is it so? Well, algorithms by whom are done? So far, they are done by men or women that are behind the computer. They can start learning by themselves. They are becoming more intelligent. But firstly, they reflect stereotypes that are in our society. And this has to be avoided at all costs. It has to be avoided also because if a sentence like I am a Muslim, simply because there is the word Muslim, gets deleted, this is infringing on my freedom of speech. If this works better, for example, I am a Buddhist, is not deleted, well, that's also a bit strange. So we need to see how this online detection and text prediction is made. We have analyzed this in another report that Fra has done on a bias in algorithm, where we looked at exactly the issue of detecting text that can be offensive. Now we have the DSA. The platform will need to comply to it as of February this year, and I'm sure we will discuss further about this. But for us, it's a very promising piece of legislation that can really support the respect of everybody's fundamental rights online, besides offline.
Thank you very much, Sara. You have introduced another question that I wanted to pose to the group, so I put it in, and we can move on to Laurine next. So this third question was, and you addressed it somewhat, what are the challenges of using AIs to combat hate speech? You have touched on this, but with this, I would like to toss the ball to Laurine first, and then we are going to move to the panelists that are here with us in the room. Laurine, thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Just let's, for beginning, maybe I can present what Je suis là is. So we are an association, but also a collective. We are part of a larger international network, mostly European, named I Am Here. And our members are simple citizens countering hate and misinformation online in the comment section, directly in the comment section of social media. And we promote a better, more respectful online discussion. Just first, maybe it's important to underline that we are not experts on AA, but we come from an activist practitioner perspective. But because AAS feeds into the content of social media platforms and even into the way they operate, we are directly involved in the subject. So to counter online hate, we need to understand how it spreads. So what we are observing at Je suis là is that social media are heavily impacted by the development of AA. First of all, and maybe I will have the chance to talk more about that when I will talk about advocacy, but it's recommender system. It's a big part of what is important to understand, because recommender systems of social media play an active role in promoting hate speech. Also, there is a rise of generative AA, such as ChatGPT or Midjourney, which is helping to increase hate and disinformation online. But if I can maybe just talk a little about the report of FRA, because I just read it before the conference. The report proves that current content moderation system in detecting and preventing hate speech are ineffective. And we share this view at Je suis là because there is some people just like activists that need to do the work to just be online to see if there is hate speech, and maybe it will have to be the platform to have to say to do this, not activists. So we share. So for us, there is a real need for stronger efforts to create a safer and non-discriminatory online environment. So for the time being, we do not use AA tools for our online activism because we want, and it can be a part of the answer of your question, is that for us, there is no technological magic wand. We have seen how countering hate speech usually has to be done by hand in a one-to-one discussion, and the human factors plays a strong role to have a productive conversation with an entrenched proponent of disinformation and to plant a seed of constructive questioning in the silent bystanders' minds who read but do not participate in online discussion. But however, AA tools could help limit the damage. So at Je suis là and at I Am Here, it's a discussion. We have seen how often quick and big engagement in a conversation somewhere on social media is an indicator for toxic discussion. And we have seen that it is critical to intervene as soon as possible to steer the conversation in a constructive way rather than to let it deteriorate. So we will love to see at Je suis là a tool able to detect in real-time spaces where engagement grows quickly, because this could be very important for us. But what we want to underline and to highlight is that this is an information large social media platforms already have, but they have been managed in an increasingly opaque way over the years. For example, access to tools destined to researchers or civil society, such as Quad Tangle for Facebook, have been progressively restricted. So it can be a real good thing if tools can help to tackle hate speech, but maybe it's important to precise that platforms and big tech needs to do a lot more that they are already doing, because they have the tools and they need to practice it. So There is a room for exploration and experimentation, and we encourage this, but we need to be careful about that too. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Laurine. And now we can move on to our panelists here in the room with us. Zsolt, can you elaborate on the issue?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm more an expert on AI than on hate speech. Sorry about that. What we are talking about is basically, just to clear up, because it has been said already, but to make the landscape clear, that we are talking about basically two types of AI, or maybe two basic types of AI. The AI which is combating against hate speech, so all the AIs that are filtering, or either filtering the content, or they are creating the news feed or sort of recommender systems. So that's one group, and the other group is which are generating the hate speech. So these are two absolutely separate things, and we have not been talking about those AI tools that enables us to generate all kind of content. It has been mentioned here, and I think that's as important as the tools that are making that are filtering this content. So there are two types of software. One is the recommender software, which is creating or editing our news feed, or which is actually generating what we see on our news feed or on our interface. That's one thing. And the other thing is that the content moderation software. And the content moderation software also has two types. The one is that which is making all kind of observations and before when we upload the content, and it stops or bans the content immediately, so it doesn't allow to be published. And the other type is when it has been already published and someone is reporting that content as illegal, and then after that it makes the first filter is always, because they are, of course, we are talking about millions of posts per minute, and there's no human resource for filtering all this one. So only a very small portion is getting to moderators, human moderators. And the problems that these software are arising are totally different. So recommender systems are generating filter bubbles, so this is a separate problem. And the content moderation software is again another problem. What is mentioned here is that what is the problem with this filter software? There are 5 problems, and I've just written it, and sorry for just. The one is that it is making mistakes because it doesn't understand the context. It is just sometimes irony. We are talking about irony, and sometimes the wider context should be also must be taken into consideration. Now, what I think is that this problem will be somehow less and less. Of course, we don't know how the AI will evolve, and that's a kind of disclaimer now. We don't know, because no one thought. Even in the beginning of 2022, that ChatGPT will come, and this will be so shockingly, in mimicking, good in mimicking human language. So we don't know how this will evolve. But my prediction is that it will become this will be less and less problem, that it won't understand the context and whatever. The second problem which is mentioned here is that it cannot give justification for the decisions. This will remain. This can be solved, of course, because this software can give some kind of justification or reasoning for after a decision, but that is just an imitation of reasoning. It is not a real reasoning, because they are working on data patterns. So they can say that, okay, this was because of this or that, but this is just imitation of the thing, because actually there is a statistical, some kind of statistical parameter behind the decision, and it cannot be, in most of the cases, it cannot be explained on a plain human language. So it can be somehow solved that it gives a reasoning which resembles to human reasoning, but it is actually not. The third problem is that the so-called translation gap. That's a very well-known problem from the literature. That actually we have a house rule or a kind of community rule, and it is written in human language, and it should be translated into code. That's a big problem. Who translates the code? What kind of, how he or she interprets certain phrases in the community rule? This is a real problem. We have not just the recommender systems and the content moderation systems. We're gonna live in a world where a lot of things will be managed by software, and it will affect our rights. And it will more and more will be a problem that how this software, because of course the legislation will be done in human language, of course, because the political community will have these rules or codify or publish these rules in human language, and after that this will be translated by someone to code. And that's a problem. And this kind of problem will stay with us. That's. I don't think that it will be. The fourth is that even if we solve all kind of problems, there is a divided society behind all this speech. So some say that okay, that's a hate speech. This is a hate speech. I don't know that women should stay in the kitchen, and some say this is not a hate speech. And the community, the political community, is divided on these matters. That won't be solved by AI. That's because and that won't be solved even by human moderators as well. And the final thing is, which is I think a very interesting one, but it's not the most important one, but still a very, very interesting one, that there is this phenomenon which is called the algorithmic aversion, which means that we accept decisions from people even if they are making mistakes, because people, human beings are making mistakes, but we don't accept from machines. We don't accept any kind of mistakes from machines, and that's a big problem, because moderation should be done on the platforms by AI because of the quantity. And at the same time, we are not accepting bad decisions or any kind of decision which is not advantageous for us. We don't accept, especially those decisions which are not advantageous for us. We don't accept these decisions from machines if they are making mistakes or we think they make mistakes. That's for all now and later.
Thank you very much. Gergely, the floor is yours now.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for the organizers for this event. Now, it was said that DSA, I will talk a bit about the legislation with regard to this.
Of course, we can move on to that block as well.
Because I'm not quite familiar with the technicalities related to content moderation. Though I'm a bit more familiar with human rights, especially in the online sphere. And it has been said that the DSA is a promising piece of legislation. I'm very, very skeptical about that. Let me ask all of you, have you seen any change with regard to your moderation in the last few months? Has it been easier, more facilitated? Were you provided more reasoning to your moderation? Because my personal experience is that nothing has changed at all.
We've seen only the paying version of the Facebook.
Indeed, and those who made just like I do, the terrible mistake by staying on X or Twitter, we can also witness an incredible amount of hate speech and hateful content, unprecedented amount. And it has been documented empirically, especially with regard to the new Gaza war or Gaza conflict. People who register on Twitter or X now, without any recommendation system, without any content or algorithmic bias, is being put up with or is presented with beheading videos, extreme anti-Semitic content. So these are problems that I don't think that the law is able to handle. And I tend to be a bit more I tend to be more provocative with regard to what Sara said, because I don't think it's a promising piece of legislation. If anything, it's a bit traditional piece of legislation. It still uses the human terms. It still thinks that the law is able to attack or not be in conflict with market or stakeholders who are moderating these content. These are not courts anymore. These are not lawyers anymore. These are market players, Facebook, Meta, TikTok, whatnot. And this is very problematic. And the DSA, despite its articles about the safeguarding of fundamental rights in terms and condition and the risk assessment, which tends to be the breakthrough piece or stipulation in the DSA, I don't really see any change in practice with regard to this. And I don't really see that it happens anytime in the future as well. And one more thing to add is that with regard to what Zsolt said, of course, it's also very hard to traditionally define the difference between offense and hate. Think of John Stuart Mill and Joel Feinberg in this sense. So can we really propose that codificators would be able to do so, or an AI system would be able to do so with regard to the differentiation? I'm asking Zsolt, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have a general understanding of what regulation says or it wants to say. But before we move on to another aspect of this issue, I would like to give the ball to Sara to respond, because we have heard a critic to what she said earlier on. So Sara, the floor is yours if you want to weigh in on this little debate.
Well, I don't. We have to see how the DSA will be put in practice. I think the entry into force is the 17th of February 2024. It's a long piece of legislation, and I am still hopeful that it will help support or regulate at least these gigantic monsters with some due diligence process. I think I'm still hopeful, and I really think that some of the provisions, all of us, especially civil society, can also support the process in the implementation of this new piece of legislation. I mean, I have to say that at FRA, we have not analyzed it yet, but yeah, I mean, when I read, for example, the fundamental rights risk assessment, of course, I mean, there are a lot of questions how it will be done, and particularly how we can audit. I mean, the Commission will have a role on the mitigating measures. They can ask for fines, and also they can sanction the companies. But also what I think would be important is who is auditing, you know, who is actually monitoring how the companies, the big platforms are actually removing, over-removing, under-removing online content. And the DSA can make it possible to access the data. I mean, our research at the time could not access Facebook. We were not given permission to do so, to analyze the data, that the content that is on Facebook. I think in the DSA there is a provision that speaks about access for vetted researchers to conduct audit and to see as well how their algorithm works. So I believe it increases transparency in a way, accountability, and also the role overall of independent research and auditing of how this platform operates is a system that we have in the EU, and I think we should use it at its best.
Thank you, Sara. Now the floor is Zsolt.
Just to remark that I think the most, because the platforms are not interested in taking down the divisive content. I'm not saying that the hate speech, but the divisive. They are interested in being publishing more and more divisive content, because that's screen time, that increases screen time, and therefore they can sell the advertisements better, and they get to know the user better because of this is behavior. There is behavior. They are registering like thousands or 10,000 of data point on that, and the more active the user, more active a user is, then the more data point he or she is generating. The only thing which is, I think, an effective tool to combat divisive content and also hate speech is that the advertisers at some certain point, even if the user is spending a lot of time before the screen, but if it is the content is not is like harmful for the advertiser, so the image of if the advertisers is harmed, then they will not advertise. And I think that's in the past 2 years, or in YouTube and also in X, the most effective way of combating against this kind of illegal, divisive content and hate speech was that the advertisers just stop advertising. That's very interesting, I think.
Thank you very much. I don't really want to interrupt the natural flow of the conversation, so let's move on to the second big panel or segment of this particular panel, and that is advocacy. And my first question would go like this. What is the motivation for big tech companies to combat hate speech, specifically, for example, with AI tools? And the first one I would like to ask here is Laurine. Can you come on in on this?
Yeah, thanks. Quickly, because it's not my subject that I work a lot about, but I think, and it's John, just what was said before, but the main factor for platforms to fight hate is, for me, is reputational risk. The fear that advertiser will leave the platform and that there will be a loss of revenue. There is also the risk of making the user experience uncomfortable and users leaving to other social medias. And again, it's a loss of revenue for them. And finally, there is a risk of prosecution and fines by the regulator, notably the European Commission with the DSA. So, but I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that the priority for big tech is just to limit the toxic content, because it can be very viral and it's very important for it. So I will let others try to have another answer to this.
Thank you very much. Let me stay with you and expand the question. So if we don't know exactly what kind of motivation can we find for big tech companies, what can the civil society do to foster this actually? So can you expand on this or elaborate on this, please?
Yes. So first, I think the first thing is that there is a problem in the civil society that people do not know what artificial intelligence is and how it can impact. If I take, for example, an association which work for defend the migrants, for example, there is a lot that do not that are not interested in the subject of artificial intelligence, because they don't know that it can have an impact on their activities and all the in the defense of their beneficiaries. So the first is maybe to sensibilize and to let people be aware about what is happening on social media, what is hate speech, and what is big tech are doing. So for example, at Gergely, we try to do this work at the France level and also at the European level, because we are part of the People Against Big Tech Coalition, which is a big coalition which was created in 2021. At the beginning, it was a text, the People's Declaration, which was describing the systemic issues about big tech. So the need to defending democracy, the fact that billionaires deciding of the fate of millions of people, and also the issue about toxic recommender systems. And when you join a coalition like this, you just discover that there are many other organizations that share the same point of view of view. So it can be important. It's allowed to just to talk with other organizations, just to organize and to try to advocate, just to make big tech change their practice. So it's important to explain to the civil society that you are legitimate. It's not possible just to say, I'm not legitimate to talk about intelligence artificial. It's just everyone is legitimate. You need civil society need to understand that their point of view is important, and I think it's important to understand that maybe it's to illustrate. It's like climate change. You do not need to be a climatologist to defend climate policies. So it's the same with artificial intelligence, and it's the same with the practice of big tech. So I think at the moment, big tech, they are really involved in the lobbying at the European level, and it's not the same for civil society, and we need it. It's really urgent that it change. We need more countries to contribute, more underrepresented voices, because if we are a lot, maybe it can have an impact on big tech, because if everyone knows what is really happening under the platforms, it can maybe change the things. And for now, there is very few people and very few organizations that seems to be legitimate. They think they can be legitimate to advocate on this subject, and I think until this do not change, it doesn't change, it could be very difficult to change the way big tech practice. So, okay, I don't know if it was very clear, but I think it was okay.
It was, thank you very much. Sara, would you like to weigh in on this issue?
Yeah, I think I want to build on what Laurine just said, because indeed we believe that civil society can really help and support also in the implementation of the Digital Services Act. In the Digital Services Act, they speak about the so-called trusted flaggers. These are organizations that should be recognized as trustful and that can report to the platforms. They can notify the social media platforms on certain manifestations of online hate. And what they report, it should be taken more into account by the platforms. This requires funding. We are also aware of that. In fact, we have in our report that I mentioned before an opinion where we point both to funding from the European Commission, funding from the member states for civil society to play this role. But if I also think at any right holder, I mean any user of this platform, in the face of them, we often click consent on things that we do not understand. I mean, if I think of my mother, she would just click consent, you know, on whatever Facebook is proposing. But what it is behind the terms and the conditions, we also need to understand. It can have a very big chilling effect, online hate, and it can magnify hate that exists in our society. And I think the civil society can really bring the voice of people and support them, help them to address the big platforms, the big tech, member states, try to find also how to access remedy when this is necessary, how to really pursue the channels that are available out there. And also civil society, as Laurine was saying, is representative of many groups, and all the groups should be receiving the same treatment in the platform, fair and trustful transparency treatment. And it would be really great if more studies, more audits, more type of research is conducted by civil society groups representing different type of minorities on the platform themselves, if they access the data or request for access and so on and so forth. And really trying to use all the available tools that the DSA is making at their disposal to the maximum, basically. And yeah, I think civil society can do a lot in this respect, and also considering the vulnerable position of any of us, and particularly of the most marginalized group when using this big tech.
Thank you very much, Sara. Can we move on to Gergely on this issue?
On advocacy? I mean, when I was just thinking about how dystopian and how late capitalist it is that we are expecting advertisers, for-profit advertisers, to help combat hate speech on for-profit online platforms. And really, what's the point of the user anymore? What's the point of law in this case? What Sara said, of course, I don't tend to be, or I intend not to be very negative towards the DSA. The Trusted Flagger stipulation, Article 21, I believe, is of course a fantastic piece of stipulation, and it opens a gateway for civic societies and NGOs to finally report and have a fast route into moderation. Of course, the vetted researcher status is also a great tool. What I find a bit more problematic is that we should also take into account the political, financial, and regional differences as well. There are not many fact-checker organizations in Central Eastern Europe, for example, not as many as in Sweden or France or Germany. So by this, I would like to say that it would be much appreciated by EU legislators as well if regional assessment would be made with regard to the promotion of civic advocacy against online hate speech, especially in this region as well.
It just came into my mind that it's what we see here is the formation of a new kind of extra state rule of law something, because we perceive the big tech and the platform as the government or the state was perceived before during the Enlightenment or something like that, and we are now developing all kind of tools that how can we control this power. This is very interesting, and I think our civil society will have a very, very important role in this setting, because the government they can represent these vulnerable groups in a more effective way than the government. The government will have some kind of role in this setting, but it won't be like I don't know what, but because there will be of course authorities, but the civil society has to be prepared for like that they have to deal with data patterns, algorithms, and all these kind of things. So this is not just we are representing a vulnerable group, but we have to have the expertise to see that what's inside the machine. So this is something that it's for me. It's like the formation of a new world, a new brave new world where tech companies will be controlled by new control mechanisms, which some of them will resemble to old mechanisms like the transparency as a kind of
silver bullet, good for everything, or at least we think that it will solve everything. It won't solve everything, because if we just see that what's going on inside the system, and we have all these kind of statistics. For example, we know that 95% of the hate speech has been removed before it has been published, as it was mentioned early in the morning today. So we don't know what is this 95%. What's it? So, but we have to, and also the civil society have to be prepared for this. They have to get this expertise that to handle this data, to handle the algorithms, to be in a position that they can negotiate with the big tech engineers and the decision makers. So I'm not saying, of course, that only the advertisers, but what I'm saying is that in this new setting, the most effective player who can really which was successful in really restricting the power of the big tech were the advertisers. That's what I'm saying, but I'm not saying that they are the only one.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have finished with advocacy, so if it's not a big problem, then I would like to circle back to our previous topic. And I have one last question, actually, and which would go to Gergely first. So how platform regulation facilitates the use of AI tools to combat hate speech, if at all? So this would be my question.
Well, it's a fantastic last question. A bit of a complex one, but I will try my best to summarize it. So from a platform regulatory standpoint, we can see that the DSA, of course, but it has happened before in Germany and Austria as well, with the Netzwerkdurchsetzungsgesetz and the BLG in Austria, that platforms are often encouraged to implement new technologies so as to comply with these national laws and, of course, the DSA. Now, the big question remains, how can we enforce that they really do implement these systems, and how can we control and supervise whether or not these systems are used correctly and efficiently? Now, one big question would be, okay, we see how many posts were removed. Now what? What are we doing with now? So, though there is a tendency towards the implementation of newer system, data sets, for example, Ethan Zuckerman, who is the leader of the Center of Civic Media at MIT, is developing a fantastic data set in the US to fight against online hate speech. I don't really see such developments here in Europe, but I hope that DSA, in some way, shape, or form, will help this or assist the development of such data sets that we'll be able to help with moderation and detection of hate speech.
Thank you, Zsolt.
Just a short remark. As far as I remember, the Parliament version of the AI Act contains as a high-risk system, the recommended system of the platform. So from this respect, the AI Act could be even more important than the DSA combating against, because then this means that they have to audit the system. They have to have, and this means also a partial transparency of the recommender system. So at least one problem, which is the recommender system, because the other part is the content moderation systems are not included into this, as far as I know. But we don't know the final version of the text, so I don't know what happened with this particular section. Is that, and I think that this is very promising, because if this will stay, this will be within the text, and then there will be a legal ground, at least to have an overview or have a deeper insight into the recommender system of the social media platforms.
Thank you, Zsolt. Sara, would you like to weigh in on this issue?
I think that we have to use this DSA for asking for more transparency to the platform, as well as when it comes about advertising or what the platform are advertising to us. And I believe that the Commission can also play a role through these reports that they will receive by the platforms, a large platform, on the implementation of the safeguards that are required in the DSA. And the risk assessment can be, I think, a tool. It's clear that I mean, if you read the article, I think 34 of the DSA, it really mentioned that even the online content moderation tools should be should actually take into account all groups and protected ground and the rights of the child. There are a number of rights that are mentioned there that have to be taken into account by the platforms. So I do believe that there are also issues of due diligence here that will be further developed in the future. Yes, indeed, civil society needs to have also the technical expertise. And here, I mean, we all might lack that technical expertise. And this is where we need an interdisciplinary approach, I believe, to the issue of monitoring algorithm or digital platforms on what they are doing. We have also called for this at the FRA, so more exchanges among different communities to speak to each other, to build up dialogue and to support each other in this work. And I think also training of the police, for example, on what does constitute, I mean, hate speech online or illegal content. Training as well of the judges. I mean, there is a way to bring a complaint that ends up in a court in respect to illegal content. But of course, we need to raise this awareness. We need to have the tools. We know that from the data protection field, even when now, if we speak about the GDPR, even the same data protection authorities, sometimes they struggle to follow, you know, all the technological developments that are out there. But I do believe that there are ways to create this synergy, maybe among NGOs more and more, and possibilities of advocacy, even for more funding to get, you know, the expertise that is needed. When I also now at the FRA, we are considering, but it's still in the air, is not really something in our work program. We are considering whether it would be feasible to have a monitoring tool that would allow us to complement our surveys on with the people from different groups. So our wide surveys that we do face-to-face with the different groups to complement with data that is available online on forms of hate crime or hate speech. But again, how feasible this is, how we can ensure that the algorithm is really not biased, transparent, etc. So even here at the FRA, we have this consideration, how we can join forces, you know, with computer scientists, for example, how we can also train computer science on these issues of fundamental rights. These are all open questions that I think the DSA, the AI Act, they help, they give the tools, but then of course the practice has to be built and created.
Thank you very much. I think you have touched upon a very interesting issue, meaning the developing the expertise of national authorities, for example, under the GDPR or under the DSA. And it's a crucial thing, because I don't think that national authorities at this point in any field are capable of doing the investigations and audits they ought to do under law. So it was a very interesting point that you have mentioned. Thank you very much. And last but not least, I would like to ask Laurine whether she has to add something to this segment of the panel.
Yes, thanks. Maybe just quickly about the recommender systems. I think at Adam and at Gergely, it's really good, important point. This should be one of the Europe's priority if we want to tackle the next waves of dangerous speech. Because moderation is very important, but we shouldn't only be dealing with the consequences of a much wider, much more systematic problem. We should address one of the root causes of the large spread of hate speech. And as we said, big tech's recommender systems are engagement-based, and inflammatory content is what drives the most engagement. So toxic, borderline content is what social media like Facebook or X push the most. So this requires immediate action from regulators, and I think maybe DSA is a good place to start. And there is already some work on this, some research. There is experts from academia and civil society that are currently work on alternatives of recommender systems, which will be public interest algorithm or healthy news feeds, which will be safe by default. So there are a lot of things to do, and it's a beginning with the DSA, but as Sara told, just the AA Act is a new step, and there is a lot of things. But if civil society just be engaged, be involved in this this subject, maybe it can change the things.
Thank you very much, Laurine. And I think that we are very good on time. So thank you for keeping the time for my panelists. And now we have the opportunity to open the floor to questions from the audience. So my question for you today, do you have any questions? Okay, I think we have been...
Thanks. My name is Bujunyadi from Political Capital. I have just one minor question to Gergely. You mentioned a tool which is being developed at the MIT. Sorry, I didn't understand the name that you mentioned. Could you please elaborate a bit more on what this tool will actually be, what it will, how it will function, what its aim will be, and so on?
Indeed, Ethan Zuckerman, who is a very prominent activist and just a fantastic writer. I really like him, and he and his lab develops data sets that enable the detection of certain hate speech types. For example, one is deepfake hate speech, and multiple studies have been published, not multiple, two, but at very high impacted journals, and it seems to be a success story thus far. So if anyone is interested in data sets and its relation to hate speech, I think it's a very good starting point in this regard.
It's like that you have the data set and then you infuse it or somehow into the social media, and then the response is tested, or how it works.
Again, I'm not.
It's
really
a test, kind of
yeah,
test
I mean,
data.
It's test based in that sense.
Oh yeah, I see.
But it has some novum in it. I'm sorry, I'm not really from the technical sphere. I'm just a big admirer of things like that.
Okay, anyone would like to comment on this question? Okay, then. Any more questions from the audience? Very good. I think we have been quite exhaustive. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Then there is nothing more to say than thank you. Thank you for being here today with us. Thank you for listening to us in this panel. And especially thank you, our dear panelists, for coming here and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. With this, I would like to conclude this panel. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.